Good evening, one and all present in the meeting. So, as we all know that COVID-19 has hit us in the uncertain times. So, we as management students, I also would like to react. I would like to know how to react in those situations. So, myself, FN from MAHRM, take this opportunity to welcome each and everyone in this session, the first session of the Agile Leaders. So, I'm very grateful to introduce our speaker of the day, Ms. Rekha Matthews, one of the best to have a conversation on this topic with the audience. Well, speaking about Rekha ma'am, she's a business management consultant with 30 years of experience in different areas like HR, media, imports and exports management. She has done her BTech in civil engineering from College of Engineering Trivandrum and post graduation in computerized management and marketing management. So she has also held various positions such as leader in HR in Nissan Digital India for 3 years. Prior to that, she was also the India head for the university relations and fresher hirings in UST for 9 years. So she is also a regular speaker in forums and campuses pan India, and is also keen about mentoring youth, leadership development, etc. She is an active leader of Toastmaster International and holds the Distinguished Toastmaster, which is the highest title in Toastmasters. So we should be grateful to have ma'am in this meeting. She's also a recipient of the Lokmat Aspire HR Leadership Award 2014 from the World HRD Congress. With this, we all got to know that we have got a prominent speaker for today. So, on behalf of the Rajagiri students, as well as the faculty and as well as the OCR, I welcome Ms. Rekha Matthews to the meeting. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that beautiful introduction. So I guess I was told that we have 35 MHRM students in the meeting. I hope so. And I also came to understand from Salim that this is the first session in the topic HR agility or leadership agility. I think agility in agile leadership, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So with the ever-changing business scenario in these uncertain times, especially in this digital world and this I cannot say post-pandemic, in this pandemic times. So agile leadership is indeed a great topic to ponder on. So good topic to select for your sessions. I mean, a series of sessions are being planned, I understand. So further, agility in HR has emerged as a buzzword. In simple terms, capability of HR, we call agility in HR, what we mean is the capability of HR practitioners to respond to changes in organization. So the changes could be either strategic changes, changes in culture, internal and external policies with regard to employees. So it may be different modes of changes, but as we know, HR is the link between the organization and the employees. So HR is the face of the organization. When the organization wants to mention change, definitely HR has to be in place, and through HR only an organization mediates the changes. So there are three components basically for HR when we think about HR agility. So one is, everybody knows that HR has to be capable to quickly identify issues that need to be addressed. So in every organization, it is of the interest of the organization to have happy employees, right? So as employees or as individuals, we never like change. So we are set to follow a certain pattern of working or a certain routine in our life as well as in our career. So we always resist change. So if we follow a particular diet and if we are being told to change the diet, then we feel disturbed, right? So it's similarly, whatever way we do. So some people like to get up early and they sleep early. So most youngsters, they like to sleep late and get up late. So when we tell them to start waking up early, it's a very difficult change. So similarly, anything in the workplace also. So a change in the way we have been following, be it an organization culture, so be it a pattern of working, or be it reporting to another person. So changing the org structure or reporting strategy. So anything will require a certain sense of persuasion or influence, or some kind of a disturbance is always there. So it's not easy for anyone to adapt to change. So as HR practitioners, one person, or let's talk about the HR team as a whole. So the HR team should be capable to quickly identify any such issues. So forget about change. So otherwise also in the organization, there may be several issues going on. People will have issues, team might have issues. So some manager might be having some issues with the team. So these things can be understood many times with social listening. So HR people has to be active collaborators, or people who constantly communicate with the team members. So whether officially or unofficially, there has to be a great collaboration with everyone in the organization. And these kind of things, these kind of talks and rumors, so reach your ears. So if you have good communicators. And there are other ways also to analyze these pulses. It could be surveys. We use several tools to gauge all this, gauge the sentiments. It could be a sentimental analysis through pulse survey. So there are different tools to analyze this. So apart from this, we also talk to people. So we have to be capable to quickly identify issues that need addressing. Okay, there may be issues, but we may not be able to focus on the entire, even the small things. But we should be able to identify those issues that require our attention or focus. So such issues which might disrupt the functioning of the team, or functioning of the organization, or functioning of even a single individual. So an individual might not be in great terms with his or her manager. So this can be a biggest trigger for that employee to look for another job. So when we think about retention, we will have to keep that employee happy. So if the employee is unhappy, the HR business partner needs to sense it, and needs to identify the issue and address the issue. So I was talking about 3 components of agility. One is to being capable to quickly identify issues. Second is a faster response to address the potential issues. So many times we don't have the luxury to wait for the perfect answer or the perfect solution for an issue. So many times a faster response will be more important than a perfect response. So agility also means faster response. And the third thing is to incorporate advanced tools like HR analytics and design thinking and all, and find out how we implement successful programs to keep the employees motivated. So people never see what HR is doing. So in no organization, no HR, I should say it's a thankless job. So people will never acknowledge if we do good things, but they are quick to notice and talk when HR is not doing anything. So always that's very unfortunate, but it is like that. So if people are not saying anything, then that means HR is doing well. And if people are talking bad, of course, when people are talking, they talk bad only. So that means HR needs to be more effective. And being an HR practitioner, you will have to use your influencing skills. You have to be a good persuader, to talk to people, and how do you manage change? So you have to use excellent communication, and you have to use your collaboration skills. First of all, you have to know your business well. So rather than being a postman, you will have to work with business. So nowadays in all IT organizations, we have HR business success enablers, BSc, or now more and more, this role is called as HR business partnering. So even the way it is termed, So HR business partner is essentially, literally a business partner to the functional team. Okay, so we work with the function and we help them to identify issues. And in every team, the functional leaders, they want their team to deliver the best. They want their team to work together. So the HR person, the HR business partner is the link in between to ensure that everything is going well. So many times the functional leaders, they may not be in a position to identify such issues or to be able to be proactively problem solvers in this case. So in such cases, HR functions as mediators. So many times, sometimes I remember that in my previous organization, there was a performance problem from the side of an employee. I mean, the managers felt that this employee is not performing well. So this problem was reported to HR, and the HR business partners intervened, and they talked to this employee, and a meeting was held between the managers and the employee. So many times, these two people, manager will be on one side and employee will be on another side. So manager will have his priorities, or he may be prejudiced sometimes that the employee is not performing well, and the employee will have employee may, of course, in such a meeting, employee will be insecure. So there has to be somebody, some mediator, one mediator who has to talk for both sides. So that's where HR comes in between. So HR has to function as a mediator. HR has to ensure that the performance is the employee performs in the most optimum way, as well as the manager is happier. Manager feels that there is a change in employee performance, and the employee should also be made to know that, see, he's not performing as much as the team expects him to do. So there has to be a win-win. That is where the HR person intervenes. And here, we need to exercise some persuasion skills also sometimes. And unfortunately, the axe falls on HR to implement all changes. So HR has to implement all changes as bloodlessly as possible, with minimum damage. So there, of course, will be people who resist changes. So in such cases, HR has to work to unfreeze the people who resist change. So, when there are major changes, sometimes organizations lose people. So sometimes it is inevitable. That is why I said as bloodlessly as possible. But HR jumps in to ensure that we have very less fatality, I should say. So this is the regular role of HR, especially we should say the agile HR role in changing organizations, especially in digital organizations. How fast technology changes. So it has happened in Nissan when we started the first batch. I joined as the third employee in Nissan Digital in Trivandrum, and we built up from around a table, we grew to 550 people. And initially, when we did hiring, we hired a lot of freshers with no work experience or less than 1 year work experience. And these people were given training. They were divided into different batches and given training in some technologies, be it Java. Some people were trained in Informatica. Some people were trained in .NET or different things. But, especially a startup is a rapidly changing organization. So initially, when we think about a strategy, hiring strategy, we might be anticipating different things. But after 2 months, maybe when the organization evolves, we change. We have to be agile. So we even change the way we operate. So technologies will change. So it happened in Nissan also. So the first batch who were being trained in Java, they worked on something else. They worked on Salesforce. So similarly, organization, especially technology organizations, change rapidly. So here, there will be a lot of problems. So naturally, the people who are trained in one technology, when they are being pushed to another technology, they'll come back to HR. They'll say that, see, I don't like this technology. I like to work in front end. I don't want to work in back end, or I want to work in data science. So this is not my area of interest. So if everybody starts complaining like that, we cannot accommodate everyone in one technology, right? So here, there is a very important role of HR in such cases. So here, the employee has to be listened to, attended to, because it's at most important that we have the employee feeling satisfied and happy. And at the same time, we have the organization priorities. So as an HR person, you are the organization's representatives. So we should always place the organization's priority on top. At the same time, we should have the employees happy. So here, Agile HR is not just a buzzword, no. So this is how we are expected to operate here. So ultimately, the employees and the organization goes hand in hand. And here, HR definitely has to play a big role, exercise their communication skills, collaboration skills, and sometimes the power of persuasion and making compelling business cases. And at the same time, HR also has to be trustworthy. So if you make promises, and always, whenever you are making promises, you only make such promises that can be fulfilled. Otherwise, you will lose your whole credibility. And you will be talking, you will be making the promise in terms of the organization, right? So when you make a promise, it is the organization's promise. So if you fail, the employee will feel that the organization failed. So it's very important to maintain that trust also. Here I remember an example. So when we talk about strategy changes, so one of my HR friends recently, it happened a month back. So let's say company A. So this company A, it's a global organization. It's a very big organization. So the company has its office in UAE, and the company HR is run from India. UAE has its own HR team, but the company HR headquarters is in India. So Bombay, I should say. So the headquarters people decided to implement variable pay for everyone. So usually this variable pay is not there in the UAE salary structure. So that's not there. So the UAE employees were not having variable pay at all in their salary structure, but the India headquarters wanted to implement that from a particular month onwards. The UAE office was already facing a lot of attrition. They had a lot of technicians. So it was very difficult to get this particular skill from the market. So they were trying somehow to retain these people. So it was at that time, the HR was asked to implement this variable pay. So they resisted. So they resisted. They said it cannot be introduced now. It is not part of the pay structure, and it has never been there. Then there was some policy issues as well. So they tried to convince the headquarters, but headquarters insisted that the variable pay should be implemented. So this is a very big example of an organization strategy change. Okay, so somehow the UAE business head and the HR team, they straight away rejected this request. It's not a request, it was a direction, and they did not implement this. So what happened is finally next month, when the approval for the salary payroll went. They did not give approval from Mumbai. And eventually what happened is that this led to my HR friend losing his job. Okay. So here I would like to give you an example here. This is a particular study. There is an analogy. It was, there is a book by Dan Heath. So this famous book is named as Switch, How to Change Things When Change is Hard. So in this book, Dan Heath gives a concept, gives an analogy called elephant and rider. Actually, this concept he borrowed from a psychologist in New York University. His name is Jonathan Haidt. So it's very famous in his name, the elephant and the rider. So to explain about this analogy, there are two sides of our brain, right? The emotional side as well as the rational side. So emotional side always feel very energetic, all those feelings, like energy, sympathy, or loyalty, all these are emotions. So many of our decisions are driven by these emotions. So we decide to stay in a company because we feel loyal. So some people never leave a company. So even if they get a big salary hike, if they decide to leave. So some people still stick to the company because they are loyal, or they have a good people relationships there and they feel good there. So that's an emotional side. So the decision is driven by the emotional side. So let's call this an elephant. Okay. It's not what I call. Dan Heath calls this analogy as the elephant and the rider. So the emotional side is compared to an elephant, and the rational side. So here it's always our decisions will be evidence based. So we think rationally or intelligently, and some decisions are made that way. So for some people, the emotional side is more prominent. For some people, the rational side is more prominent. That depends on the way we were brought up, and we are made like that. So people have different traits. So the emotional side is compared to an elephant, and the rational side is compared to a rider. Okay. So just think, the rider looks like he's having the whole control of the elephant. But sometimes, no, if there is a conflict between the rider and the elephant, who wins? Elephant wins, right? So the emotional side wins. So whenever there is a conflict between our rational brain and the emotional brain, so always the emotional side wins. And what is our ultimate objective? We have to ride the elephant, and the rider should have perfect control, and both should be happily traversing the right path in the same direction together. So that is what is required in an organization, in any organization also. So here we have to have a win-win for both sides, for the employees and the organization. And the elephant and rider should always go happily together with the same objective in the same path. So when we look at, I have one more example here. Okay. So it happened that more than one times that I was in charge of hiring fresh engineers to the organization. And of course, we used to, in my previous company, we used to hire something like 1,500 people in a year. So that's quite a big number. So it has happened that many times, usually campus hiring happens almost 1 year in advance. So the hiring happens in the month of, say, August, September, and they pass out in the month of April, May, and all that. So mostly the joining time will be some July and beyond. So it's almost a year. So within a year, in agile organizations, in today's digital organizations, a lot of changes can happen. So this is unpredictable. So changes keep on happening, and 1 year is a long time in any new gen organization for such changes. So it happens that previous years projections do not stand, do not hold in the next year. So we might have thought that in this particular project, we can use these many freshers, and actually we next year we may not be having those many projects. For some reason we would have lost a customer. So there may be so many reasons, or some technologies required change, and we cannot use inexperienced people for such roles. So as a result, it has required the organization once decided that we cannot take the freshers whom we offered. So by when we say offered means we did not issue the offer letters, but we had completed all the selection processes. We had made a contract agreement with many campuses in India, and we sent letters to emails to the selected people that we have selected them, we have offered them. And it also happened that many of these people, they were kept out of placement routine when they got one offer. So many colleges have that policy. They don't get a second offer if they get selected for one. So as a result, they went out of the placement of process. So they don't have an alternative as well. So it happened that I had to go back to the campuses, and I had to inform that we will not be able to hire them. So in that case, no, the elephant in me, my emotional side was really upset, because I know even my daughter was of the same age. So I know how difficult it could be for these youngsters who were waiting for an employment. But in such cases, when an organization decides something, there is a solid reason for saying that. It's very difficult for us to stand in between, to go back to the colleges and say this. You will receive many queries from the colleges, or maybe the parents, or maybe students. So even from politicians, okay, you will receive a lot of queries. And you are the face of the organization. You have to face all these things because there was a change in your organization. But at the same time, what you can do is you have to convince yourself. So are you convinced that you are doing the right thing according to organization's changed requirement? So only when you convince yourself, you can convince others. So it's a basic principle for anything. First, convince yourself, then you can convince others. So this was, I'm telling you examples because you'll be able to relate better how changes affect HR practitioners. So how difficult change can be many times. So I have been in talent acquisition as well as talent management in several organizations. So in traditional manufacturing organizations as well as digital organizations. So I worked in both ways. So in the newer organizations, we have to be more agile. It's more of teamwork. It will be more of change. So we have to continuously adapt to these changes. And agile HR can be also termed, it's also very related to the term change management. And in talent acquisition, we have to find newer ways to identify talent, especially since these pandemic times, everything has become online, right? Even the work from home, remote working has become a practice. So here also, initially in Nissan, we were not allowing anyone to work from home, because especially when an organization in a startup, it's very important to build the culture together. So when teams grow, they have to meet each other and they have to be together. As I specifically said, there'll be a lot of changes. So it was very important for the team to be together on the floor So we were not allowing work from home in Nissan in the initial days. But you know, pandemic has changed everything. So our policies had to be changed, our way of working had to be changed. And HR, it's a big challenge for HR to measure performance, to reward and keep people engaged, keep feeling people feeling connected. So that's all a big challenge in the COVID times, when everybody 100% everybody is working from home for the last 1.5 years, since March 2020. So it is September. So initially, in these times, communication was also a big challenge for us, because so it started in March. So we never knew that it'll be extended for 1 year or 1.5 years. So initially in March, when we started working from home, so people were all in Trivandrum, and everybody is from different place. Only 50% of the people were from Kerala, so rest 50 from outside Kerala. So even people from Kerala, even my home is in Cochin, and I was staying in Trivandrum just for work. Okay. So all of us continued staying in Trivandrum, thinking that maybe it'll be only for 2 weeks or maybe maximum 1 month. So everybody continued to stay in Trivandrum only. And initially there was a lockdown which prevented people from moving to different places also. So people continued in Trivandrum, but after 1 month, it didn't look like it is going to subside anytime soon. But again, organization was not able to take a decision on see how long we can continue this. So there was uncertainty. So people were asking, see, when is the office going to be open? So we could only say that we will see in June, we'll see up to June, and in June we'll come back with a better communication. So in June also it was an uncertain time. Nobody could look at the future. So most of us went to our native homes, but still people, the rented homes were there in Trivandrum. Even I didn't vacate my flat in Trivandrum. But then again, after June, again there is uncertainty. So in October also, people were not able to see the future, where it is going. So by October, we decided that this year we are not going to open office. So most people vacated their homes, rented accommodations and went home. So in these circumstances, the communication from HR side is very important, because people are looking forward. See, we know that everybody is had been facing this total uncertainty. So we were feeling so secure. At one side, there is this pandemic. Many people were getting affected. Their families were getting affected, and all this one side pandemic, and the other side companies were laying off people. Other than IT, all these businesses were closed down. So a lot of uncertainty. So in these times, even simple communications or connects by HR, it's a very different thing. So it gives a reassurance to people. So these are the different ways in which we have coped up with uncertainties. So I gave you examples on how we dealt with uncertainty as an agile practice. So finally, I think I've already I had committed a 30 minutes talk and a 30 minutes interaction. I think an interaction is also very important. So I would like to just wind up what I had been speaking about. So as HR, as agile HR, we have to help people achieve success, achieve their best performance. And at the same time, we have to make sure that the organization's interests are taken care. And just think about the elephant and the rider. Both elephant and the rider has to go together. So we have to take care of the emotional side of the people. At the same time, we have to make sure that the rider is in control. and we cannot push anyone. So we can only guide people. So at any point of time, if an employee thinks that we are pushing changes, we are pushing things, then there'll be a rebellion. So HR practitioner has to be very patient, a great communicator, a great collaborator, has to know the business very well, and he or she is the face of the organization. So definitely it's a big role, even though it is often not acknowledged, but at the same time it's a I think it's a paramount responsibility that any HR practitioner performs in any organization. So I'm sure that I have given you at least some examples, real life examples, which help you remember some of these things. And Ritik, I think we are good for an interaction now.
Yes, ma'am. Guys, if you have any question, you can ask, ma'am. No, means the time for you to ask questions.
I see Arya. Arya, you can ask the question, Arya.
Hi, ma'am.
Hello.
So my question is that from your experience in the HR field, has there been an instance when you had to fire any employee? So if yes, what like how difficult was that for you? Because HR managers are supposed to be empathetic, at the same time takes turn decisions. So how to manage both?
Yeah, yes, of course, this has happened. So something that I remember recently is, I mean, while I was in an organization, so there was a, generally the artists, they are more creative people. They usually do not adhere to the systems and practices. So they have a different mindset generally. So this particular person, she was a lady, and she was not coming to the office on time. She was sometimes does not turn up for days together. So the manager was suffering, work was suffering. The manager didn't know how to manage this lady, especially, sometimes it can backfire also. So when we talk about diversity and inclusion and all, so manager was a male, and he was finding it difficult how to communicate to this lady. So we intervened, and we talked to this lady, and she said she can be in office, she will follow the rules and all, timings and all. But you know what happened? Again, she fell into the same track. So there was a 1 warning, 2 warning. Finally, we had to decide to inform her to leave. So that was one instance. And in that case, the lady, she acknowledged that the fault was on her part, but somehow due to her lifestyle, she was not able to cope up with that. So the organization had to take a painful decision. And there was another occasion in the same company that, as I told you, systems slowly evolved. So in the beginning, we don't have very hard and fast rules or systems. So initially it happened that a lady was hired in the organization without the knowledge of HR. So the functional leader decided to bring in a person, maybe this person was his relative and all. So somehow we identified that there was a new join in the organization, but we did not approve this hiring. So there was a confusion initially for the first 1 or 2 days. Okay, how did this? There was some investigation going on. So this person has come to join. She has an appointment letter, everything. So after 2 days, we identified that this was not with the permission of HR, and it was a backdoor entry, and there was no proper interview. So we had to inform this person to leave the organization. Actually, it's very, very tough. You also have to look at the legal side of it. So sometimes this person can go for a case. So we have to get legal opinion before doing such things. And in all these cases, no, you have to be convinced. First of all, the person who is negotiating, you have to be convinced that you are doing the right things.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, I see Nayana the next. Yeah, Nayana, you can go ahead.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Yeah, I must say it was really an informative session at first. So I would like to ask you that it is about the agile leaders in this uncertain times. So let's consider our current situation, the pandemic situation. So there were many organizations which were very, employee friendly at the first phase, and later on they were forced to fire their employees or cut down their salaries due to this, as they have to cope up with the situation. So such a action from the side of an organization will affect their attrition rate. Like the other employees may feel, no, next time it might be them when such another situation occurs. So how would you tell about that?
Actually, none of the organizations we had to take such a measure. That about see, sometimes we have to weigh the pros and cons. Okay, so if business is facing a big setback, a huge setback, just look at the aviation industry or the tourism industry. Definitely they cannot move on with 100% employees, right? When they are losing business, if you look at the aviation industry, many people lost jobs. Or sometimes if to avoid the layoff, company must have taken a decision to cut salaries. So there is no other go, right? In the event, you might lose your good name in the market, but sometimes we have to weigh the pros and cons when things are inevitable.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jordan.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Just want to thank you so much for your time. It was really a pretty interesting session. No, I just want.
Your voice is breaking, I think.
Jordan, your voice is breaking.
I'd like to know your.
Jordan, can you repeat it again?
Or...
I guess no, Jordan has got connectivity issues.
Okay, in HR.
Maybe Jordan can come back. Maybe
yeah,
after
you
some
can put
time.
it in the chat. You can put it in the chat as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyone else with the same? Any other questions?
He can chat. So if somebody can read out.
Hello, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, Angel.
Yes, ma'am. So as you have stated, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected all the employees. But many articles do read that women are the worst sufferers of the same. So leaving the COVID scenario in a general setup to being a women HR professional, did you have any experience of facing a challenge being a women HR professional? If yes, how did you overcome that?
I think your question is partially correct. Not as women in HR, maybe as women in families. So if you look at, see, everybody staying home, children are having online education, online classes, you have your work, maybe your spouse is having work. So with everybody working, usually in the general Indian setup, so usually the home responsibility is more on the side of women. That's what we see, even though it has to be an equal sharing when both partners are working. So that way, you can say that women have a disadvantage. But being an HR practitioner, I think I don't see a gender difference in anything. Sincerely, in my workplace, especially New Gen workplace, I've never faced any such discrimination or any such differentiation between men or women.
Right, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you very much.
At the same time, no, what I feel is that many women feel that they are not equipped enough to take up challenging roles. So sometimes they are hesitant to come forward and take up leadership positions. So we face such things, but that's not that anybody is preventing you to do that, but it's your decision.
Thank you.
I think Jordan have typed this question in the chat box. Ma'am?
Hello. Yes.
Ifin, can you please read it out? It's okay, ma'am. I'll read it. Ma'am?
I can hear you.
Yes, ma'am. He asked that I would like to know your views on automation in HR, because many people say that the future of HR is automation.
Okay, I think I talked about HR tools and analytics, right? So automation is inevitable in all fields. So in HR also we use a lot of automation, like even all the I mean attendance management, everything is through tools only. So even analytics, we use people analytics or HR analytics to make important decisions. So tools and technology is being used in hiring. So we used to do online assessment or even online interviewing. Different technologies are used to improve our decision making and also the processes. Sometimes, you know, in most organizations, I think now this chatbot is there to answer queries. So people ask funny questions like, "Adutha salary ini eppada, adutha hike eppada kitta?"
Ma'am, can I ask a question?
Of course.
Yes. So I have, yes.
Anshita.
Yeah, my name is Anshita. So I have a question again. Since you worked long term in IT industry, it's a very competitive industry in terms of resources. Like the people are very competitive. The attrition rate is very high as far as I know. So there is a situation called renege, where you give the offer letter and people accept it, but on the joining day there is no news of them. Yeah. So have you faced such issues, and how have you managed such a situation?
Yeah, that's a very common occurrence. I should say it's not rare at all. So in IT, people take one offer and go to another organization and bargain for more. Actually, it's very difficult because, you know, usually IT employees have 2 to 3 months. So on an average, 3 months of notice period. So when we start from the date of a job advertisement, it might take at least say 1 or 2 months to find the right candidate. So initially we have to do the advertisement, then we have to look at several candidates, we have to advertise, and then we have to pick the right candidate, right person after multiple interviews. So all this requires, it's a very painful process and a long process. So after this, say one person will be having 3 months of notice period. So we are compelled to wait until that person completes the notice period. And see, look at that, a scenario after 4 months, this person doesn't turn up. So we are back to zero, right? So that should be a basic, there should be some basic ethics on the part of all employees or every candidates also. But what can we do? It's a very bad situation. We are back on square one and we have to restart. So in only few cases, we cannot keep backups also. See, unless we cannot give offer for more than 1%, right? We can only offer the right person. We can only identify people and maintain backups in our list. But when we go back, they may not be there. We can't be sure.
Also, ma'am, I heard of some companies use trackers for identifying, like there are stages, like there are steps for these joinees to attend before the joining, and if they miss something, they will be inquiring on them. And so there are, in a way, such a situation can be avoided. Like there are some tracker systems that I came
And
to
those these are all things that everybody has to follow, and they follow them. So that they make sure that they follow, because at the same time they'll be looking for other jobs. So it's difficult. Even in such things, no, they do not fail. So only thing is that they do not turn up, and occasional calls to potential joinees. So we do all that.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Ma'am, I guess there's another question by Jordan. He has asked, isn't decreasing human aspect contradictory considering we deal with the humans?
Decreasing?
Decreasing human aspect contradictory considering we deal with the humans. Isn't it
Considering?
1 second. Let me
make it simple for me. Okay.
Yeah, he has typed the same actually. Jordan, if you are online, I do it easier because you can express it more. Are you online? Else.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's good. I think my way. So basically, it's just a continuation of my first question, because automation is supposed to be decreasing the human intervention. So isn't decreasing that human aspect contradictory, because we deal with humans? So decreasing that human aspect. I mean, what is your take, ma'am?
No, human aspect is never out of consideration. Okay, so that cannot be replaced, especially in the role of HR. HR, it's only increasing. I mean, nowadays we are very focused on ensuring the right candidate experience. So earlier we used to talk about employee experience. Now we talk about candidate experience, because that's the first stage in which we project an impression of the right organization. So when you go for an interview, how you are being treated. So right from the moment of sending the application, so how quickly you get a response. So how you are being approached, how you are being treated or respected. So when you go to an organization for an interview, so what do you see there? So how nicely you are being received. So even after getting offered, so is there a connect? So do you receive some other introductions to the company? And all these are very important. So there is never, automation is not a replacement for the human touch. So automation is only aimed to make better HR decisions and to make the employee experience better. So rather than going to the right one person for everything. So if we can give for example, if you want to know about a policy, so if it is well laid out in an HR portal, it's easy, right? And if you want to know about what are the travel allowances, so if you want to make a business travel, what are your allowances or what are your leaves? So always you don't have to go and check with an HR person. So a portal can give such information, or you can even use HR chatbot, but it's not at all a replacement for the human touch. That's where I said I talked about collaboration and continuous communication.
Thank you so much.
Ma'am, I had a question.
Yes, please.
So ma'am, so you are saying that HR is someone who mediates change, right? So if we got to see in a speech of Greta Thunberg how she brought forward the blah 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 promises by different world leaders and political leaders. And how do you think HR in its policies or process can aid the sustainable development goals in any form? Because we are not really in the business, but we are driving the business per se. So how do you think we can contribute to any of the sustainable development goals or sustainable practices? Because we are not actually in the business, but we are driving the business.
Correct. So that's exactly the requirement of policies, because policies lay out the things clearly, and it is to refer. It's a Bible. So any policy is a Bible to look upon when we have some ambiguity. So and these policies now need to be amended also. When we talk about agile organizations, the policies keep on getting amended continuously and based on the circumstances. If you look at the work from home policy, so my company did not have a work from home policy earlier, but now there is a work from home policy which was necessitated from the due to the pandemic lockdown. So that is where the policies are laid out, which serves as a reference Bible to remove ambiguity.
So,
Did I answer your question?
No, ma'am, I'm actually just probing once more. As in I was saying, there are sustainable development goals. So, were you intending that with the evolution or such goals coming into place, an organization will evolve itself through policies to follow or achieve those goals?
Goals, when you look at goals, every organization will have its goals based on its say core values. Okay, so these core values form the organization. This is the base values on which the organization is built up, the culture is built up, or even the assessment framework or the performance management framework. Everything will be dependent on core values. For every organization, it is like that. So from there, based on the core values, we might evolve, right? The organization will necessarily evolve based on the changing world and changing business situation. So that's how we evolve. And HR is always the link between the organization and the people. So HR has to talk from the side of the organization. At the same time, HR has to give the people a feeling that their requirements are attended to. So this is where that elephant rider situation plays effectively.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Yeah, Ashwati has raised her hand actually. You can go ahead, Ashwati.
Yeah, hi, ma'am. I'm Ashwati. So you were saying that you felt this trouble in the case of hiring students from the colleges when they were not they were left out. That is, when they were not hired. And how did you deal with that? What is that one thing you will have to say to the freshers?
Actually, it's difficult to handle such situation. That's where I said I was emotional. I mean, especially knowing having a daughter of that age, it was very difficult for me. But at the same time, we have to convince ourselves, because it's not intentional. Like, the organization has ended up in a situation where we cannot afford to have people. So these people, suppose if we hire those people and we have to fire them the next month, so that's even more difficult, right? So if we are not bringing them in, if we are not offering them, definitely they will be able to look for other roles, and they'll be able to move on. So it's very important to communicate this at the right time also. So we cannot just keep on telling them that we'll call you this month, next month, or maybe next year and all. So we have to be clear with them. It was difficult, I should say. It's not at all an easy task, but we have to do that if the organization necessitates it, and if the business situation necessitates it. So here, convincing ourselves is the biggest thing.
Ma'am, apart from exercising communication skills, which is really important, how can we exercise our persuasive skills in the field of HR? Like, do you have any opinion on that?
Definitely, that's where I said I gave you an example of a performance issue between a manager and an employee, right? So here, or somebody had to be fired. So this person was not adhering to the rules of the office, so the decorum. So at that time, we might need to persuade the person. So persuade, just like we can only give the feeling of guiding. So we have to be open with the person. We have to say that, see, it should be in the interest of the employee. So the employee should know that their behavior is not acceptable to the organization or acceptable to the team. But at the same time, it is in the interest of the, we have to project that it is in the interest of the employee to adhere to the team expectations. So it has to be a win-win. Say if one person is too adamant that they will not cope up with change, then we cannot do anything, which happened in that case, which I explained earlier during my session.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
So
do we have any?
One more. Our objective is a win-win always. Okay. So in every case, our objective is a win-win. Yes.
I guess. Do we have any other questions? Like, if anyone else? Helen is yeah.
Yeah, ma'am. Ma'am, because of this COVID, I've seen a lot of people complaining that they're working overtime. So before it's like a shift, so they have to leave the office by 4 or 5 or 6 max. But now that they are working from home, the manager is giving them a lot of tasks and they have to complete it. They have to sit and complete till 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock night. So this issue, they can't raise it to the manager as well as the HR. So how can the HR ensure that these things are heard in the organization as well?
So the time management is one one area where we have a lot of challenges in working from home situation. So that control has to be from the employee side. So we often see that even while we are working from the office, some managers always have this practice of calling for a meeting when at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock when employees are about to leave. So there are always such managers. So we can only tell them if there is a, like I said, no, we can resort to social listening. So if we listen to people, if some people complain particularly about some managers, we can talk to them and ensure that, see, there should be a personal, a work-life balance also. So at home now during this pandemic situation, I think this is an important aspect where the time management suffers. It has to be we cannot depend too much on the managers to correct this. I think it's a personal commitment or personal effort to manage it well.
Thank you, ma'am.
So at office, we can shut down the office beyond a certain time, but home is not like that.
I guess, is there any questions, other questions for ma'am from the group? I guess it's a no from the group. Okay. So personal, like I would also thank you, ma'am, for the insightful session which you have given. So I request Anshida to conclude with the vote of thanks for the meeting.
Thank you, Efin. Good evening to one and all present here. On behalf of the Office of Corporate Relations team and MHRM batch, I would like to thank today's chief guest, Rekha ma'am, for taking out time from your busy schedule to grace the event. Thank you for enlightening us with your inspiring and encouraging words. Also, thanks for your guidance, especially with giving us the 3 steps to become good agile leaders. And also what all skills that we have to become a good HR in future. Also, you gave a very simple explanation of what are the functions of different functions of HR with good analogies. I mean, that example of an elephant and a rider will be stuck in our mind, and we'll be definitely thinking about it in our future job and our career. Also, I would like to thank you for handling the questions asked by my classmates in a very elegant way. You have shared a lot of knowledge, and hopefully we will be using it maximum in our future career and jobs. Also, I feel like telling you that you are an exemplary person, and we have a lot to learn from you. Okay, next I would like to thank the OSIA team for coordinating and organizing such a successful session. I also thank my my faculty and staff members for their enormous cooperation. I would also like to thank the technical arrangement team who worked behind the scenes to make this online event happen. And lastly, and most importantly, I would like to express my heartfelt thank you to all the students for actively participating in the session and paying attention till the end. And also we appreciate similar cooperation and support in the coming event as well. With this, I conclude my vote of thanks. Thank you.